This is Joe Paiva with GeoLearn. I am in the studio with Gary Kent from the Snyder Corporation in Indianapolis. And Gary's just finished what he might call an exhausting 3 days, recording a new set of courses on the 2016 ALTA NSPS Land Title Survey Standards. Gary, thanks for putting all this hard work in. Hopefully it will start paying off soon for all the surveyors in this country.
I hope so. It's my pleasure, Joe. I always enjoy helping educate people and help them do their job better, so I enjoy it.
Well, we had you do these courses because you are pretty well acknowledged as one of the experts on these ALTA NSPS Land Title Survey Standards. And I know you are heavily involved in the process of creating new standards when it's warranted, and maybe there's a time period over which you meet. When I say you, NSPS meets with the ALTA to work out when changes need to be made. Can you tell us a little bit about that process and how you are involved in it?
Sure. I'm the chair of both the NSPS committee that deals with the ALTA, formerly ACSM, now NSPS standards. I'm also a member of American Land Title Association, so I'm chair of their liaison committee with NSPS. We have kind of a gentleman's agreement between the two organizations that we will not promulgate new standards more frequently than every 5 years unless something really serious crops up. So after about 2 or 3 years, we start into the process because it takes about 2.5 years to go through an entire revision. So we in NSPS really start the process. I pull the ALTA committee in pretty short order, and then we kind of run parallel processes. NSPS committee meets every 6 months. ALTA committee meets kind of situationally. I think we met twice and then once on conference call. And then when we get to the end, we have a joint meeting of the two committees to come up to kind of wrap it all up, put a bow around it, and then take that version to the two organizations for consideration.
Now, the 2016 standards go into effect or went into effect, depending on when the people listening to this conversation hear it, on February 23rd, 2016, and I heard some connection with the Roman god Terminus, and who the heck is that anyway?
Yeah, the Romans, of course, were apparently party animals, so they had gods for everything, and every god had a festival that was associated with that god. And there was a god of boundaries, essentially, named Terminus, and the date for the festival of the Roman god Terminus was February 23rd. And so we decided to have a little bit of fun and make that the effective date of the standards.
So a little bit of levity in a really serious topic.
That's absolutely correct.
So one of the things that I run into question-wise, because people know that you are one of GeoLearn's faculty, is they ask about the process that they can participate in to contribute suggested changes, because I'm assuming there are all kinds of reasons why changes might be needed, but I would assume that the committee also needs to hear about issues that need to be covered or resolved. And so what is the process for a land surveyor?
The process, I keep kind of a master list of suggestions or issues that seem to crop up. That list gets formed by, when I do programs, a lot of times people will maybe make a suggestion in a program. I'll put that on the list. It also gets on the list when somebody, maybe 3 or 4 times, I'll have an email or a phone call asking about a particular item from different people. And I may look at the item, it seems like it's okay to me, but if you have multiple people asking about it, then I just write it down because apparently we need to look at it if it's not clear to people. Also, questions come in sometimes to Kurt Sumner, NSPS Executive Director. Sometimes questions go directly to ALTA, and those end up coming to me. I keep a master list, and absolutely any suggestion that I hear gets on the list. It doesn't matter if I think it's good or not. My commitment is to put it on the list. And then that list grows and grows and grows. And this particular time, it ended up being 14 pages long. In 2011, it was 21 pages, so we'd hope we're getting better. But that's how that happens. So if people want to just email me, then they, with a suggestion, it will get on the list.
One of the other things that I encounter very often in my travels is I discover that surveyors are not always very process-oriented in terms of getting a contract before they do any kind of work. But obviously the standards require that. So for those surveyors who are not used to the contracting process, is there any guide or a standard contract that they can use?
I have some standard wording that I use for scope that I'm more than happy to provide people just so they can see what I would put into a scope of work on a land title survey. There is no standard contract. Of course, contract law varies across the states, so our committees have not created a standard contract, but the Victor O'Shinner Company, Professional Liability Manager, and NSPS, and prior to that ACSM, have collaborated over a number of years in creation of a risk management manual which includes contracts. And that's available through NSPS, and I believe they're getting ready to redo that, come out with a new version of that here probably within a few months or certainly within a year. That should be available through NSPS's website, and there's some really good guidance on there. Maybe there may be some standard contract language. There may even have a sample contract, but certainly in any given state you would want to run your language by an attorney.
That's true, because people could create a model contract just like you can get at an office supply store, but you would want somebody to vet it.
Right.
So one of the questions that I also run into is, why would someone need an ALTA NSPS land title survey? Because many surveyors don't know how to sell that service because they don't often understand what it is that someone gets. How does that differ from a standard boundary survey that you might be hired for?
Well, a land title survey is in fact a boundary survey. It's a survey to a higher set of standards. What triggers it is when there's a conveyance of property that is going to involve a lender. That's typically what triggers the need for a land title survey, because the lender is going to insist on having a title policy to protect their interest. And there are, in the standard title policy, there are standard exceptions, and one of them is what we call the standard survey exception, and that exception says the title company is not going to cover any of these matters that aren't disclosed in public records that would have been disclosed by an accurate survey of the property. What that accurate survey really is a land title survey. So what happens is the lenders don't want that exception. There's a tremendous number of title problems that nobody's going to know exist unless the surveyor goes out and identifies potential encroachments, gaps, overlaps, all of those types of things. So what happens is the lender says, we don't want that exception on our policy, and in most cases the only way to get that removed is by providing a land title survey. Now there are some other things going on in the background that might allow other than a land title survey, but generally that's what triggers it, is the lender wants certain coverages on their title policy, and the way to get those coverages is by providing the title company with a land title survey.
So how would people get more information if this is kind of a new topic, or they want to learn more about the 2016 standards, or to maybe learn specifics because of an unusual situation they've encountered doing a land title survey?
Well, we certainly have our whole series of 7 courses that we've just recorded.
That was your cue.
With GeoLearn. That's about 7 hours worth of material there. Then we cover the entire set of standards. Also, I write columns, and different people write columns in the different surveying magazines. There is a weekly or bi-weekly news email blast that goes out from NSPS called News and Views, and we often do like FAQs or questions that people send in that we look at and say, well, that's a really good question. So we'll provide the question, and then we'll provide an answer with some context there. So there's a variety of places that people can get information in addition to just watching for seminars in their area. But certainly, probably the most comprehensive and best thing we have out there are the series that we've recorded with GeoLearn here.
Very good. So you are probably one of the most prolific speakers on the surveying conference seminar circuit, and I know that ALTA, NSPS land title surveys are not the only topic you cover. I'm aware, because of the courses you've done for GeoLearn, that you speak on easements, because you did a series for us, and another one, which I think is extremely interesting, on the judicial role of the surveyor. Are there other areas that you also present?
Yeah, I present programs on title and survey issues. That judicial role is a very popular one right now. I do a version of the land title survey, the ALTA NSPS standards, that is targeted to field technicians so that they have a better understanding of what they're doing. I've created a new program on safety in the field that I'll be presenting first time here, coming up in a couple of weeks. I also do a variety of other things. It's not too unusual where a state might want to have me tailor something. They may want to cover some specific issue. I frequently do an ethics and professional competence or survey standards for a state. That's pretty frequent. So there's a whole variety. I do one on business, kind of a different twist on business issues. So I have a whole variety of them that I do and enjoy creating new ones when a state wants. We also do a mock trial that I've written, actually 2 or 3 versions of a mock trial, where we get a real judge, we get real attorneys, and the audience sits in as a jury. We split them into separate juries, and we have like a 110-page script that's an entire court case with all the witnesses and competing surveyors and neighbors who have observed things, and that's a really fun one to do. I've done that in about 30 states.
Well, thank you so much for spending all this time and allowing us to get a little bit more insight into who you are beyond your notoriety, hopefully positive notoriety, as an expert on ALTA NSPS surveys. So with that, Gary, I'll thank you again, and thanks to everybody for listening in.